One of the parameter that what we have been using and rather what we have got to know from certain mentors that we had, um, that parameter is actually how jealousy are you like when you see that ad, when you see that particular campaign, because what comes to your mind first is that, oh, I should have done this before. So if you can build, that campaign, if you feel a little bit of jealous about the idea that, that you should have done this before, I think that is actually the parameter that we could use as how that campaign um, is a winning campaign, or like that campaign needs to get an award that builds in your mind. So that's actually, yes. So that is a parameter that is just simply beyond the classical way how we evaluate ideas. Once you see that, once you feel like, okay, this idea is amazing, then it automatically is, like you will tick those boxes, the background, insight, and how the strategy, and also how they came up with the idea and the executions, all of that, and finally the results. All of these boxes will automatically, ticked when you really see that idea is amazing, and then you really feel it. Okay, you should have thought this idea before. You get to see that. So I think it's predominantly the relevance of the medium. So sometimes, it's not necessary that you need to have all the mediums or all the channels at once, but it could be like sometimes the whole campaign, the whole idea could be based on one particular medium. But what really matters is the idea that you're going to bring, how other mediums are going to really support and basically, taking it to a different extent. So for instance, like, from the FOM last year's Gone Free, the campaign, which is I don't remember campaign, that it just had like a post-match interview. And that was just the idea. That's it. And then rest of the things, rest of the mediums, whatever that was building, it was all earned media. So I believe winning campaigns always has like, it's not necessary to think of, you should connect, and it needs to have television, it needs to have cinema, or like, digital, like social. You don't have to connect it that way, but if the idea is stronger, and then, all the other mediums will complement, and then it will go, like possibly go viral, and then it become a big thing. Even a similar story is the Dove's Turn Your Back campaign. So what that campaign was just focusing on one particular element in social media, like it just a finding on social media and a filter. So how do you really react to that filter and create a bigger purpose? So that had so much of traction and it went on viral. So in all the other mediums, it contributed not only in social or other digital, but even like the campaign went into news. So that's what exactly what I believe, as a, the campaign needs to have a snowball effect in terms of media. That's what I think, the way how you can really integrate all the different channels. I think all across we have seen that the shift is happening. So one is basically the behavioral changes are happening across multiple different ways. So one behavioral change is even the media consumption. So I think one of these campaigns, which was also highlight from FOM also, like, I mean, there are plenty of campaigns, but I'll take this also as one of the examples. Indeed did this campaign called Jukebox. So that ad was basically, what they did was they used, or rather they blended the job search data with Spotify data. And it was basically personalizing the whole campaign and providing a personalized experience based on their job searches. So how does these two things connected? So that because, where the time that people spent and the behavioral changes in terms of their entertainment, consumption, all of that, these behaviors have been sort of changing with devices, what people are using everything, like their consumption habits, everything is pretty much changing. But what it does is actually, how do you bring back that and connect it back to the campaigns, what we do? So one part of that is where, like, the criticalness of this whole personalization comes into the play. And now we all know that the generation Z and like the alpha, they are the digital natives, they're born with digital. So where we see, because of that reason, there is a huge significance of digital first and digital only campaigns, more than digital first. Like, digital first is something that we have seen, which is moving, the world is moving towards, but there are digital only campaigns. So where it is becoming like a hygiene that, in most markets where they focused only on digital and trying to connect with multiple different platforms. Um, so that becoming some sort of we have seen some sort of improvement is happening there with the behavioral changes. On the other end, like, let's say another behavioral change, what we see from a broad macro point of view is that people's perceptions, as well as the global changes, or rather the pressure that comes into sustainability and ethical constraints. So where um, we've seen that even in the whole communications, advertising, especially when it comes to awards, we see a lot that there are lots of enthusiasm into the purpose-driven initiatives, where, like, focusing more on the sustainability, focusing more on many topics that are relevant to the sustainable development goals, as well as more things focused on ethical constraints and ethical parts of the world. And also, like, for instance, like, there's another thing which, with digital behaviors that we have seen, and since digital became a significant change in the whole human day-to-day life, what happens is that there are never sort of economies created with it. So one of the biggest economy which was created through digital was the creator economy. So there are lots of creators, which, what happens is that, people behave as creators. They don't just behave as just the consumers, but they're also becoming creators. So as a result, that is also becoming a major part of the media planning, as well as overall communications behavior, or other overall communications planning, as a big element in the overall communications for brands. I mean, like, looking at what is existing right now, we won't be able to tell. I mean, obviously, we can't really predict. Like, for instance, a decade back, we didn't had like certain platforms, but TikTok has become the most wanted, or sort of, most popular platform right now. But it wasn't exist like, 10 years back properly. But I think what is trending right now is generative AI, and like the whole the story behind AI. So what I would suggest, or rather what I would say, is that AI will become the key game changer for the next decade. And with AI, all these social platforms, all these technologies, what we have right now, will have more advanced kind of connections, integrations, where brands, as well as, um, even the communities, will have a bigger, or rather better way of communicating. And there could be new things will happen with the power of AI. I believe, AI will play a major role as a trend, as a rather as a technology that will help all the other technologies to grow. And then so that's what my take on by looking at what is happening right now. I mean, like, even we have seen it, how things are actually changing right now. So one of the predominant thing, like, we've been talking about AI also. I think as a result of the significant growth of AI and generative AI, especially, what we have seen is that the brands, especially in terms of the media planning and the media functions, are predominantly focusing on the data, and then it's becoming more and more vibrant. The data driven marketing has become a huge significant part of the entire brand journey. And with that, basically, they are focusing on connecting with all of their omni channels, and how do we connect the data together and create more sustainable and viable data-driven planning practices. So one of the things right now, what we also seen is that the current context compared to what we've been doing like couple of decades back, the focus on middle and the lower funnel focus on brand activities are becoming more and more sort of, like it has becoming more and more significant and more increased the type of activities what people are doing. So unless the focus we had on the upper funnel in the longer time back, or rather few years, I mean, like rather the last decade, that has now certainly shifted towards focusing a lot on converting and attributing towards the end conversion. So the communication is more towards focusing from a bottom-up approach rather than the top-down approach what we had in the past. So therefore, like we've seen in the topics today, that the marketeers are talking about attribution modeling in one end, to optimize all of their media vehicles and their media channels what they have, and also with a higher focus on tapping into this first party and the zero party data and building their own audiences and nurture those audiences in a meaningful way. So I think even the global brands are having a heavy focus on moving out from the TV first approach what they had in the past, and now they are talking about a digital first approach into communication. So what it means, or the whole meaning of digital first, is that it's about data. So how do you collect the data, how you nurture this audiences and build meaningful experiences with those audiences. And so that is one of the predominant thing what we have seen right now. And then other than that, what I mentioned earlier also, this whole create economy is also becoming a significant part of the entire brand and marketing, rather the media landscape, especially focusing on the mid, or rather the middle funnel activities, where we've seen there's lots of influencers, there are lots of content creators are playing a major role, and that importance, the significance is much heavier compared to a couple of years back. So I think that those are the predominant things which are happening, what we have seen as a shift, what is happening. And then during the last decade, the main focus was that it moved into the whole era of agile marketing, and the agility became a significant thing. So the effects what we've seen right now are basically coming from whatever the activities which were happening like 10 years back. So now what we have seen is basically agility has become a significant part of the brand's journey. That's why they are very concerned about the data, and then the route to market and the time to market is also becoming, it's a very short span. So therefore there are lots of activities which are happening, and then while all of that are happening, so on the other end, what we have seen is also I don't want to mention the name of the brand, but the controversial commercial that went through like a couple of weeks back, the AI ad, I will call it that way. And that has created a conversation where two things. One, by creating the entire communication which was made by humans a year back, now transition was happened. It was a fully AI driven ad. So people were involved in generating sort of, doing the prompt generation and probably in editing and all of that. But the output was actually, it was AI. But what was missing in that whole essence was the human touch, the emotions. So I think, therefore, while all of these things are at a fast-paced environment, there is always, I mean, there will be a discussion will happen in the future on the human touch. So right now, the being data-driven is also a little bit slightly clinical, I would say. Then there will be in the near future, there will be a bigger connection will happen, like having a combination of being a human touch into the fast-paced environment. So that's what I've been seeing right now as a change which has happened on the media planning and all sort of the media use of media.